Let's learn about simple interest. A few vocabulary words. The principal is the amount of money on which interest is earned. If you are investing money in order to have it earn interest, then that initial investment is your principal. If you're borrowing money, you will be paying interest on the amount you borrow, so the part you borrow would be the principal. The interest is our term for the cost of borrowing money. All of interest is based on a principle called simple interest. All this says is that the interest is equal to the principal times the rate times the time. Interest equals principal times rate times time. And by rate, we normally assume an annual interest rate. And that's what I've written here, is that we have an annual interest rate and our time is in years. And we write that interest rate, instead of having a percentage, we convert it to a decimal. However, the same principle applies if you had a daily interest rate and then your time would be measured in years. You would still do interest equals principal times rate times time. If we let the future value of the money be A, then we can notice that the amount after the interest occurs is the principal plus the interest. And so then you can factor out a P and you get this expression right here. And so sometimes it's more useful to think of interest equals principal times rate times time, but also this combined formula is sometimes helpful. Let's do a couple of examples. Let's suppose that your car needs repairs, but you're short on cash. Your uncle has agreed to loan you $500, and he will have you pay it back with interest. 9% simple interest. And so if you see this, then that means an annual interest rate. If you see something referred to as a daily or a monthly interest rate, then that's what it is. If you do not see a time period written, then you assume that it is an annual interest rate. So here we do amount afterward is equal to the principal plus the principal times the rate times the time. And again, you could factor out that P if you like. You certainly don't have to. Our R is our interest rate, and that'll be 0.09. T is the time in years. So we have 5 months. We convert that to years. There are 12 months in a year. And so we end up with 5/12 of a year. And so now we come back to our amount afterward. Our principal, I should write that down, our principal is the $500 that we are borrowing. So here our amount afterward will be 500 times 1 plus 0.09 times 5/12. And so this gives me $518.75. That's how much we need to pay Uncle Albert for his loan. Let's move on. How much should you invest so that you will receive $1,000 after 10 months using a 10% simple interest rate? So here our R is 0.10. Our T is 10 months. So again, we divide by 12 to get the year. So 10/12 of a year. And this time, our principal, that's what we don't know. So I'm going to just mark that with a question mark. We do know the amount after interest has accrued, and that is $1,000. So I use my simple interest formula again. I put everything in. I have $1,000 this time for A. My P I don't know. And so now this is going to be, I'll put in an intermediate step here. Realize that the number I'm writing is an approximation. You don't want to repunch this number in when it appears in your calculator. Simply put in 1,000 and then divide it by your previous answer. Alternatively, you could take this, whatever your calculator has for 1.08333, take the reciprocal, multiply by 1,000. You want to make sure you do not round until the very end. So then my principal is 923.08, and we normally write everything to the nearest cent because that's the amount we write checks for. When you get done, make sure you ask yourself, before you walk away from the problem, ask yourself, does my answer seem reasonable? Well, what do you think? We're going to earn interest, so the amount we invest should be a little bit smaller than $1,000, which it is. If it was way smaller, if we only came up with $300, we might be concerned that we might have made an arithmetic mistake and we would want to check. Get yourself in the habit of asking yourself if your answer is reasonable. Let's suppose that we put $10,000 into a short-term simple interest account for 180 days. After that time, the bank pays us $10,150. What's the interest rate? There are a couple of ways to approach this. One is to notice that the interest is how much? $150. How did we do that? Just take the new amount and subtract the original. So $150. We know that I is equal to the principal times the rate times the time. So here we know that our principal was $10,000, that our rate is what we do not know, so I'm going to mark it with a question mark, and my t is equal to 180 days. There are different estimates used for days. Usually you'll see either 365 or you will see 360. It used to be that 360 was used more often because it simplified the arithmetic. 365 days is used more now since the advent of so many computers and calculators, which make the arithmetic easy. So I'm going to use 365. And so I'm going to write this down as 180 over 365. That's the fraction of a year. Don't round until the end, so I'm going to put it into my formula that way. So now my 150 is equal to, we've got dollars on both sides, $10,000 times R times my time, which is 180 over 365. Solve this for R, and you should get 0.0304. Now, when it asks for an interest rate, it is asking for a percentage, so we are going to write that as a percentage. So this will be about 3.04%. Let's do another one. We are due to receive a tax refund of $685. IRS generally takes about 10 days to give you an electronic refund. And there are 24-hour tax services, or that happens to be the name of this one. I looked it up. These are actual real numbers as of 2007, I believe, was when I did it. And their charge was $40 for a refund anticipation loan, in which they call it a 24-hour refund anticipation loan, but actually they give you an instant check for $615.05, and incorporated in there is a $29.95 tax preparation fee. We want to decide what interest rate we would pay. We are actually borrowing from this tax refund company because we take the $615.05 from them. They are repaid the $685 when the IRS sends the refund. So what we have to realize, first of all, is that the $29.95 is equal to this is a fee for a service that is provided, the tax preparation service, which means that this is not included in interest. In other words, this is not the cost of borrowing the money. This is the cost of having someone fill out the tax paperwork for us. So we're not going to include that in interest. So in that case, what would be the interest? The interest would be that $40. That's the cost of actually borrowing the money. And the way that the $615.05 is paid is by starting with the $685, subtracting the $40 in interest, and also subtracting the tax preparation fee. And so that's how they came up with this fee of $615.05. Okay, so this is actually the amount we are borrowing. This is the amount that is earning interest. Not for us, but for this company. Okay, so we know that our interest is equal to the principal times the rate times the time. So the interest is $40. The principal is $615.05. The rate is what we don't know, and the time. Let's see, what is our time? Well, when would we have gotten the money ourselves if we had not borrowed it? We would have gotten it in 10 days because that's how long the IRS takes to send the money. In other words, they will be repaid in 10 days when the IRS sends out the refund. And so this is 10 over 365. Let me just go off to the side. 365 days. 10 days is what we start with. And then there are 365 days in a year. And so that's how we do our conversion. Remember, we can always multiply by same over same. So 1 year and 365 days are the same. Therefore, we're multiplying by same over same, which is 1. That's how we do it. And that's how you can be sure of not getting your conversion factors upside down. See how the days cancel? So we end up with 10 365ths of a year. And so that's where we get the time. If you solve this for R, you should get 2.37379. Be careful with this. Often this is confusing to people because they aren't used to seeing things like this and then converting them to a decimal. What do you do when you convert a decimal to a percentage? For example, if we had 0.09 as we did earlier, what is that as a percentage? It's 9%. How did we decide that? Moved the decimal point by 2 slots. So we are going to do the same thing here. Even though this is larger than 1, we are going to move the decimal by 2 slots. And so this puts me at 237.38%, which is an extremely high interest rate. But this is very realistic for what is charged for this type of loan. I hope you learned something about simple interest today. Good luck to you, and I will see you next time.